On September 26, 2024, Alan Eugene Miller entered history in one of the darkest ways possible, becoming just the second person ever to be executed using nitrogen gas. But Miller's story didn't start inside Alabama's death chamber. It began decades earlier, with paranoia, workplace gossip, and 3 unsuspecting men who never imagined their lives were about to end. This is the story of Alan Miller, his final meal, his last words where he claimed innocence, and the violent chain of events that turned office chatter into a triple murder that shook Alabama. Let's rewind 25 years, back to August 5, 1999. Pelham, Alabama, was a quiet suburb where people went to work expecting nothing more than an ordinary Thursday. Miller, 34, worked as a delivery driver for Ferguson Enterprises. On the surface, he was just another man starting his day. But beneath that exterior was a paranoia that had been building for weeks. He became convinced his coworkers were spreading rumors about his sexuality. Whether those stories were real or imagined, Miller believed they were ruining him. And by midday, that paranoia erupted into violence. Miller picked up his pistol and drove to a heating and air conditioning supplier, where 2 of his colleagues were making deliveries: Lee Holdbrooks, 32, and Christopher Yancey, 28. They probably didn't think much when they saw him arrive. But Miller suddenly opened fire. Holdbrooks was struck 6 times. Yancey was hit 3 times. Neither survived. After leaving them on the ground, Miller walked calmly back to his truck. But he wasn't finished. He drove 5 miles away to another business where he had once been employed. There he sought out his former supervisor, Terry Jarvis, 39. Jarvis had once offered Miller guidance and opportunities. But in Miller's mind, that no longer mattered. He shot Jarvis 5 times, killing him instantly. 3 men. 14 bullets. All because of rumors that may have existed only in his imagination. But these men were more than names. Lee Holdbrooks was not only a coworker, but also a husband and a father, steady, reliable, and the kind of man people leaned on every day. His absence left a silence too big for words. Christopher Yancey, just 28, was young and ambitious, building a life and career that had barely begun. His future was stolen in an instant. And Terry Jarvis, Miller's former supervisor, had once believed in him when others didn't. His patience and kindness were answered with bullets. As the shootings unfolded, chaos erupted. 3 separate crime scenes, 3 men dead, and frantic 911 calls pouring in. Law enforcement knew they had to move fast. Miller's description and vehicle were broadcast across Jefferson County. He didn't get far. Within hours, officers spotted him driving erratically on a highway. What started as a simple traffic stop escalated into a violent confrontation. Miller resisted fiercely, kicking, thrashing, and refusing to give up. It took 4 officers to bring him down, and they had to connect 4 sets of handcuffs to keep him restrained. It was a disturbing glimpse into how unstable and dangerous he had become. His trial in 2000 was straightforward. 3 people dead, a suspect caught almost immediately. Prosecutors argued that it was deliberate, premeditated murder. Miller had armed himself, driven to 2 different locations, and hunted specific victims. The defense tried to argue otherwise, claiming Miller suffered from paranoid delusions so severe that he couldn't separate reality from fantasy. The jury didn't accept it. They found him guilty on all counts, and he was sentenced to death. From that point forward, Miller lived under Alabama's harsh death row system, 23 hours a day in solitary confinement. Over time, psychiatric treatment reduced his paranoia, but he still refused to admit guilt. He continued to insist he was innocent. In 2022, Alabama attempted to execute him by lethal injection. But the process went wrong. Prison workers couldn't find a usable vein, jabbing him repeatedly until he bled. At one point, he was left hanging upside down on the gurney. The execution was called off at the last moment. Afterward, Alabama announced it would carry out future executions using its newly approved nitrogen hypoxia protocol. Miller's case became the focus. And so, on September 26, 2024, his final day arrived. His last meal was a hamburger steak, baked potato, and French fries. When asked for his final words, he declared, "I didn't do anything to be in here." He was strapped to the gurney, a nitrogen mask secured over his face, and the gas began to flow. Witnesses reported that Miller shook violently for 2 minutes, then gasped for air for another 6 before going still. At 6:38 p.m., Alan Eugene Miller was pronounced dead. His execution was the 1,600th in the United States since 1976, and only the second ever carried out with nitrogen gas. A case that began with paranoia in the workplace ended with one of the most controversial executions in American history. Alan Eugene Miller's story is a stark reminder that unchecked paranoia and untreated mental illness can destroy lives. Violence solves nothing, it only leaves behind irreversible consequences. If this case left you stunned, don't forget to like this video, share it, and subscribe for more chilling true crime stories.